So today we have the topic on the future of technology and leadership, how data can make better leaders. So we have the leaders on stage as well as we have the leaders on the floor. So let's get exchange and build our organization and our society a better one. So first of all, may I invite our panelists to introduce briefly about themselves so that our audience can know how we can get connected to the topic. So perhaps, if you don't mind, we go to this direction.
Yeah, just really briefly, my name is Gregor. I'm actually part of our serverless engineering team at AWS. I don't think I need to introduce too much. The whole day is about what we do and how we help customers, so I just invite you all to take advantage of that.
Okay, Carman.
Hello everyone. My name is Carman. I was a tech entrepreneur before, I think more than 20 years ago. And after I exit my company, I turned to the investment side. Have been doing investment for more than 10 years. I still remember when I was running my own startup in Shenzhen, I need to carry 2 servers, go to the data center. At that time, there is no cloud service yet. Yeah, so technology really advanced so fast. We are going to share more observations today, how we can prepare a better future.
That's fine.
Hi, my name is Benedict Cheng. I'm the Group CRO for PCCW HKEX Group. I actually came from an investment banking background, so I spent about 25 plus years. And I joined PCCW HKEX about 4.5 years ago. So for me, it's actually quite a game changer, moving from banking to a tech company. So I can finally call myself tech savvy, and I'm comfortable about talking about technology and the concepts, which is something I couldn't do 4.5 years ago. So thanks for having me.
Good afternoon, my name is James. I'm a biologist. I have a PhD in genetics and became an entrepreneur in Silicon Valley in the 90s. I founded a couple of biotech companies and then joined with Benno Kosala at Kosala Ventures, one of the biggest funds in Silicon Valley doing venture capital. And then with a few friends within the fund, we founded a firm called Formation 8, where we raised over $1 billion in commitment. Now the firm is rebranded into 8VC, one of the largest VC funds in the US now, run by friend Joe Lonsdale. Last but not least, I moved to Hong Kong, and I'm also on the faculty of HKEX Business School, where I teach venture capital. It's a pleasure to meet everybody.
Dr. Choi, trained as an architect, venture into property developments, and then always interested in the use of technology to create a competitive edge. So we are into prop tech as well as diversifying our business into asset-light operations.
Okay, thank you, Doctor. So we have the luck to invite Donald to share with our EMBA cohort before. And hopefully we can invite other panel speakers to come to share in our school as well. So this is Chun So from the CHK EMBA program. So let's get started for the discussion of the topic today. So the future of technology and leaders, how data can make better leaders. So to start with, I think we all need to know what actually the technology we are talking about. We must align and what we are focusing on the future and how, and see how we can leverage on it. So the first question I would like you to bring to the panel is that, what sort of things you see the most promising emerging technologies that business leaders should be paying attention to, and how they can stay up to date on those developments. I think Gordon may be the best person in this panel to share it first, because you are in the tech industry.
Yeah, thank you. And I think there's sort of 2 parts to the answer to that question, right? On one hand, I mean, we even saw in the keynote this morning, right? There's obviously some super amazing and interesting technology coming along here, like generative AI, everybody is talking about it, large-scale language learning models, edge computing, IoT, right? So I think the list there is quite tangible, but the second part of the answer is, I think we are past the point where innovation is driven by a single technology, right? It used to be in the past like, oh, the cloud is like the big thing, so I go to the cloud, I'll be in good shape, right? Or if I'm a CIO and the boss asks, oh, like, is our IT being innovative? You could say, oh, we have a blockchain, right? So you could say, dear boss, right? Everything is fine because we have a blockchain. These days, that's no longer how it works today, right? So I think the success for organization lies in bundling and combining and integrating the different technologies to really, optimize for their own use cases. It's not like sort of a copy and paste. I take this technology, and somebody else was successful with it, so I take the same thing and I will be fine. It's about translating and combining the different technologies into your business use cases and to align your organization to actually benefit from this technology. Maybe a brief example, right? Many things we can do in the cloud to make you more agile, make you more data-driven, right? Like we heard this morning, right? Whole portfolio of things that we have. But if your organization is still IT and business is very separate, this agility is not going to help you that much, right? The data-driven is not going to help you that much. So the second part of this is to really benefit from the tech. You need to adjust your organization to actually allow the tech to reach its full potential. So exciting times, right? It's no longer one thing, it's the combination of all those pieces that will make organizations successful.
Okay, thank you. And besides integration, is there anything specific we should pay attention to? And how we should get prepared to integrate those factors? Is there any priority we should prioritize to look into? So perhaps any panelists would like to share? Carman?
Yeah, I think just now our panelists mentioned about generative AI. So our observation is both internally and externally. So internally, you will see a lot more employees are going to apply this technology on their work. So maybe business leaders need to think of how to redesign the workflow and also how to provide training to internal staff to make use of these technology. Because your competitor is going to use it and make themselves much more productive than you. So basically, we need to advance the skill set, how to use AI to make our team member more productive. And on the other hand, there will also be some employee, their job may be replaced by AI. So maybe we need to retrain these employees to give them new tasks. So this is something internal. For external, I found that because of the digitalization transformation, a lot of people now have access to data. Not only big company, but small business, especially like what happened in China. The digitalization in China has been going on for many years. And nowadays, even small restaurant, I'm so amazed because recently I observed my brother open a small restaurant in Shenzhen, and just for one restaurant, they are already using a lot of data. So they do promotion online using live commerce to sell those coupons to have a barbecue in their restaurant. And so they have access to all the data, including different kind of ranking in the marketplace. And also it's not expensive, like 8,000 RMB, you could have 50 videos deployed by these mini influencers. So small companies also have access to data and they can do online marketing, and this contributes to 50% of their revenue. So basically, for a small restaurant inside a shopping mall, only 50% of revenue are from walk-in. The other 50% are actually from these online marketing. So this inspired me to think if your customer has access to so many data and they can operate their business so differently compared to many years ago. So as a business owner, like property developer, are we going to need to think how we can interact with our customer, these small business, in a different way? And on the other side, we just finished the pandemic, right? And pandemic changed a lot of our daily behavior. For example, one of the big trends is in-home economy, and more people are going to stay home longer time. So they go to work not every day, only partially. So I also see there's another trend facilitated by this in-home economy, especially when we have AI that can make online world much more, not only just serving purpose, like you need to buy something, but also they can add much more because of AI. For example, like relationship. Usually we prefer go to offline to buy some fashion, maybe because we can try on, we can talk to the shopkeeper, we can get some recommendation. But with AI, you are going to able to get not only just recommendation from a shopkeeper, but maybe you could have a virtual stylist that tailor for you, that personalize all recommendation for you. So online world will become much more attractive, not only just for the discovery and the purchase, but also could have this relationship with these virtual stylists. So the offline world, when we design shopping mall, maybe we need to rethink how we are going to redesign so that we can compete with the online world. So these are some external factors that business leader may need to rethink.
Well, Carman is very resourceful, and she can always give us a good example how we can leverage data to have the growth of the business, even in the supermarket. So we put into the small business as well. And in terms of supermarket and coupon, I think you should really consider introduce Nikkei to your friend who is now in the coupon business. Where is Nikkei? Where are you, Nikkei? I saw you. Oh, he's outside. Okay, fine. So, because Gary gave me two responsibilities. One is to have a good conversation in the panel, and the second one is connect the members. And of course, I think AWS will have good solutions, not even to those big companies, but also small and medium-sized companies as well. So hopefully we can get connected those companies and we can build a better future. As Carman has mentioned, the developer, I think it's the time for me to invite Donald as well. So what sort of technology do you think we should pay attention to? And if you have any one or two examples, very welcome.
Well, I think when leaders pay attention to technology, it's not just new technology, but disruptive technology, where it will structurally, fundamentally change how the business is going to operate. For example, as an architect, I think previous training is all about how to comply with regulations, law, etc. With AI, with BIM, those will become automatic, compliant. Because as you draw with the BIM, the machine will tell you, hey, your back end hasn't meet the regulation, therefore please change it. Or actually, it can generate numerous example alternatives for you to choose. So I think this is where we need to be aware where technology will disrupt the business. And again, when talking about BIM, people think the usage basically is in design, maybe in scheduling, or in tendering, etc. But the real value of BIM is actually in facility management. It allows us to actually optimize our future operations, creating value throughout the life cycle of the building. It will allow us to do predictive, preventive maintenance. And I think this is where, when we look at public services, we think we are providing cleaner service, security guard, and so on. No longer that will be the case in future. It will become your reliable kind of a service provider. Not only on building maintenance issue, maybe you have a health problem, you can alert, not only your family members, but actually call, your concierge in your tower, then they will activate whatever you have planned and advise them in advance. So when we look at technology, I mean, we need to again, I have to emphasize, look at the technology that will fundamentally disrupt the business you are in. And if you can actually, just a step ahead, then you will be a market creator, market mover.
Thanks, Donald. So one project by Chinachem, the central market, I think it's a very good example of how we can leverage the new technology and keeping the traditional wisdom. The old building, but we renovated, which is very environmental friendly, and we have all those different kinds of considerations. So for James and Benedict, perhaps maybe I can raise to you another question to challenge you. So, so we talked about one key saying in management is that no measurement, no management. So we must need data so that we can make sensible judgment, sensible managerial decisions. So from your point of view, is there any, how different technology innovations can enhance us to make data-driven decisions? Is there any example that you can share with us? Perhaps Benedict?
Okay, I think it's interesting. So far we talk about data, right? But being the group CRO, right? Obviously, my nightmare is data, right? The fact is we've got so much data. We are the lead telecommunication provider operating in Hong Kong. We've got millions of customer data. So obviously, our main job is to protect the data. So we spend a lot of time, or I spend a lot of my time doing cybersecurity, protecting our core network, ring fencing any sort of attack on our service from hackers, from actors, and so we are lucky. Well, we're privileged and lucky enough to have our own cybersecurity team. We have the red team, we have the blue team, and also we work very closely with vendors such as AWS to protect, the overall security posture, right? So I think once we can tell ourselves that we are doing okay in protecting our data, then obviously the next thing that we need to focus on is getting consent to use the data from our customers. So, we as also at the same time being the group privacy protection officer, I need to make sure that our customers are aware of whether or not we are using the data and how we are using the data and what sort of analysis or analytical projects that we are engaging. So once we have done that, then we look at obviously the type of the data analytics that will help us in our journey, help us in fine tuning or making the user journey more perfect and also more user friendly. So first of all, I think we need to have objectives as to what we want to accomplish, right? Whether or not we want to use the financial data, we want to use customer data or any other macro data, and then what sort of study we want to do in order to understand the customer behavior and also the right market segmentation, right? So there needs to be a proper data management framework and also governance in terms of principles. And once you have that, then you need to focus on the key risks, right? Because the resources are limited. We can't just look at all risks, right? So we have to look at the material risk, the high risk, the obstacles that our businesses are facing or encountering, So we need to drive most of our resources to the high risk sort of areas to make our business more sustainable, right? Obviously, we also talk about ESG. So that's the goal to have a long lasting sustainable business. So, and also how we communicate that outcome, the data analytics result to our management, to our board members, and even to our customers, how we want to actually use to make it for people to understand what we're doing in a transparent manner, and also something they can understand why we're doing certain data analytics or certain analysis, right? So, and then I think at the end, once we have all these done and sort of settle down, and I think then we look at testing basically our framework, whether or not we call it back testing in the risk management sense, is to test how good our model is. So be it machine learning type of analysis, or even statistical method or methodology based analysis, have to look at how good our results compared to the actual trend in the market. So I think all these for us is a process. At the same time, it's also a journey that we have to undertake.
Yeah, data security is a very important topic. If you have time, perhaps we can talk more on this topic later on. And I would like to invite James. So Benedict just mentioned leaders nowadays come across large amounts of data. So we all get access to those, and how we can just have the idea to select the data we want and make good decisions. So I think we all come through these challenges and this difficulty every day. Any insight you can share with us?
Yeah, I mean, I come from the venture capital field where information asymmetry is one of the key characteristics of what we do. That is, the entrepreneurs always know 100 times more about his or her business than the investor will ever know. So especially early stage investing, right? So late stage companies will have balance sheets and cash flow that you can read. Obviously, if they lie, that's a different matter. Assuming they are honest, and you at least you have those things to look at. But early stage investing, I don't know if you know Masayoshi Son of SoftBank used to joke that he made the decision to invest in Alibaba, one of the best investments ever, by looking Jack Ma into his eyes. And he said he's made the decision to invest because his eyes sparkle. Okay, you can go to YouTube and find his quote. So where do data come into this, right? So venture is a very personal business. We look at entrepreneur in the eye and try to understand what they're telling us is true or not, whether he has it right to do it. Google, as you know, I mean, Google also has an investment business, right? Google Ventures and Google Capital. They manage, they invest a lot. Google is actually one of the largest investors in Silicon Valley. They are the first one to start using data to pick interesting companies. This was probably 7 or 8 years ago. And the result was that the Google investment team is one of the largest in Silicon Valley. So the conclusion from the Google management is that that's a failure. Right? They have ended up hiring more people. So with the advent of ChatGPT, and obviously we are also in this business of looking at these companies, right? So there's a new crop of companies that have come up. For example, sentiment analysis, right? They can actually tell from your tone whether you're being truthful or not, whether you're happy or not, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. All of those data, I mean, all of those tools we're obviously we're not using them yet, but I can clearly see that some of these tools can be applied even in a business where it's so personal, right? So I just want to just leave it by saying that right now we're really not using a lot of data just because it's such a personal business. But I do see the future that's in store.
Okay, thank you. So what's the name of the tool you just mentioned?
Oh, there are several. I mean, we're examining several as potential investment candidates.
Okay.
I'm happy to tell you more about it.
Okay, thank you. So in terms of facing a large...
There are also facial recognition software, right?
Oh, yeah.
That can tell, how honest you are. I mean, obviously, those need to be tested and stuff, but, the data seem to be pretty convincing.
I see. So we are facing a lot of data, but somehow human, is the major role that we are playing. So we are still making those judges and sensible decisions. So I would like to open the floor with the two questions. So one is a large amount of data. Is there any hints that we can work efficiently? And the second one is facing those kind of data, in what ways we can make sure we are making the good decision, which is ethical, which is unbiased. See whether any panelists would like to share on this point.
I like. So humans are both great decision makers and horrible decision makers, right, at the same time. But we have the ultimate sort of ethics and big picture in mind, but we also suffer from enormous biases. Right? That's just the way. And Carman, Thinking Fast and Slow, and all the books around this, right? So people got Nobel Prizes for actually finally spitting that out, and we just need to live with that reality as long as our brains are wired that way. So where I think and why I believe humans always will play an important role is the data can really help reduce our biases, right? And that's sometimes hard, right? In an organization, it's so easy to be a very senior executive and be used to that your opinion is essentially sort of becoming reality. That's very comfortable in a way, but sometimes the data will not support that. So I've been working in a data-driven environment for a long time. I come out of mobile apps and done many other things. So the test, the real test for the organization counts is, what if the data tells you the opposite of what you believed? Or you thought you had a great idea, but the data tells you, well, that great idea was actually not all that great. And that's sort of the real test for the organization, right? Whether it can manage the data in a good way. So for me, I feel it should never replace our judgment, but it can really help reduce our biases, being in love too much with our own kind of ideas. I think the data can be sort of a very bluntly honest sort of counterbalance to that part. So hopefully then we become better decision makers in both ways.
Yeah, because the major difficulty we are facing now is that humans are subjective. So who can say we are making a good decision? Not ourselves, but someone else besides us that can remind us. So is there anything that you think of can anyway work with large amount of data and making a good and unbiased decision?
I want to share a observation that the supermarket model. Do you aware that a lot of the supermarket nowadays they change their checkout process from it used to be you need to go through a cashier to check out, but now we just do self-checkout most of the time. I talked to a friend who operates supermarkets because I'm very curious why there's such a change. And he told me that, when they look at the supermarket operation, they found that, in fact, most of the time, customers are very honest. So they seldom have, losses because of the customer. But most of the time, supermarkets' losses is internally by their own employee. So that's why for the checkout process, they find out it's more efficient to do it self-checkout instead of going through cashier. So that kind of data insight totally changed the checkout process of supermarket. And so I feel these are very interesting when you look at your business data. Sometimes if you have an open mind, sometimes those data will help you to recreate or redesign a totally new business model. So these are something very interesting. And to talk about self-checkout, I want to also point out a new technology facilitated by computer vision. So as you know that Amazon has an Amazon Go, right? So you just grab and go. And in Singapore, library are using grab and go technology now. So there are 2 libraries in Singapore. It's grab and go. They call it grab and go library. So you just grab a book and then you go. You don't need to do anything. Yeah. So these are coming, up and coming new technology that will change how we live our life and how we even do business. Yeah. Just some examples.
So I need to jump in. So thank you for managing the Just Walk Out technology. But there's a bigger, more important message, and I think it's self-checkout is a really good example. So who really loves self-checkout? Wow. I hate it because you're still standing in line. You have to sort of scan one thing or the other. In Singapore, we have some where you put each item into the scale, kind of to weigh to make sure you didn't steal. So,
like being served.
Well, I like to just walk out, right? So, it is a really important example, though. Self-checkout is an example of how we use new technology to make the existing process better. It's better than standing in line, but it's not changing the engagement model. It's just like, instead of somebody scanning your stuff, you scan yourself. And that's sort of the classic what IT used to do. We used to take something, and then we have technology, and we make that something better, more efficient, more accurate, whatever. The reason I'm sort of picking at that is because to truly innovate, we need to not make existing things slightly more efficient with technology. We need to completely rethink whether this process is actually needed or not, right? And that's why I'm sort of hinting at this, right? If you really want to use technology to innovate, don't make a better, self-checkout thing. Make something that completely does away with the notion of putting your items in a basket at the register and paying, and that's exactly what the walkout technology is. So I encourage people, right? It's not an optimization exercise of existing processes. It's sort of questioning fundamentally whether you can do it entirely differently.
Very good reminding. I think that align with Donald just mentioned, disruptive totally. So let's see any points that James, Benedict, or Donald want to supplement. Anything?
What was it?
We are not talking about our goal, but somehow how we can leverage those technology and for the business innovation, or how we can have a better decision with those large amounts of data.
Well, I mean, obviously from the investor's point of view, Douyin and TikTok is one of the biggest success stories of tech recently, right? So we a lot of people here know, but most people don't know that they are really the top AI company, right? I mean, they were so successful, they were so sticky, and their engagement is so high. It's because of all of the AI in the background, and so a lot of this stuff, people, I guess, who don't have a deep understanding of technology may not know. But those are to be, right? Those are two businesses. Now ChatGPT has a tool now that are accessible to you and me, the customers, the individuals, which is completely disruptive, I think, for many, many things. And I just want to give you an example of education. We debated back and forth at the university level whether we should allow students to use ChatGPT in their homework assignments, and they should we allow them to carry their computer in their final exams, for example, right? I don't think that's settled yet. So the UST has decided to let individual faculties to make that decision. And there's no universal decision yet at the university level of what to do, for example. So I think that it'd be very interesting to observe how this impacts the education sector as a whole. And I can tell you that I'm very interested in seeing where this goes. Because now ChatGPT can completely pass bar exams and medical school exams, right? It's getting to a point where basically a student can just carry a computer into the classroom and just pass any final exams without doing anything. And there's someone did this in China. I think China Gaokao was one of the toughest exams you can take, right? Even ChatGPT was not trained on Chinese, okay? But they use ChatGPT, and that's good enough to go to one of the top universities already. It's getting there. So,
yeah. Well, one key takeaway I recently go to the conferences is that those who do not use AI and ChatGPT will be replaced by those who are using ChatGPT and AI. So it's rather dangerous. So let me see whether Donald and Benedict have anything to say.
I'm just warning that we shouldn't be overconfident, by the use of data or the available of data, where we, put our trust into the mathematical model or algorithm that could predict the outcome, business outcome of the future. Because the future can never be predicted, And we all, especially in business school, try to teach a rational system of success. But as mentioned, we are not rational. I think more likely we are irrational, especially when we come to something that we are passionate about. So again, I think data is important, but also be aware of, first of all, the human emotional impact, and also misinformation. I think when we are bombarded by fake news and misinformation, a lot of them actually is not innocent. They are designed, they are, tools to actually, try to bias our selection and opinions. So I think more importantly, when we look at our digitalized world and data information society, we need to have kind of a vaccine to all of this, misinformation that is coming to us. We need to be aware where we should say, hold on a minute. Yes, all the data seems to be adding up, but is it actually the true reality?
Yeah, Donald has raised a very good point, especially data is something already happened. How can we rely on to predicting the future? It must be human sense that can make the decision make sense. So, Benedict, so as you are responsible for the risk management or data security, so I think you will be the ideal person to share with us. So in terms of the challenges of the data, how we as a leader can mitigate it. Could you give us one or two suggestions?
Yeah, sure. I think as we bundle technologies of different platforms or different applications, but at the same time we should be unbundling data, which means that we should only get what we need in terms of doing our analysis. Because, okay, for example, our business leaders, our business heads, they are very, they embrace data, or obviously, but they tend to have a habit to get as much data as possible. So I always go to them and say, why do you need all this data? I mean, your analysis doesn't require, this sort of data. And I think the more you get it, the more you need to worry about it. In the event of a data leakage, obviously, if there's an attack or there is some fraud going on, right? So I think if you look at all the regulations and principles around the world on data privacy compliance, for example, GDPR or the US privacy law, they always tell you like the best practice is only use as much as data you need, but not excessive, right? So I think that's one of the principles that we sort of embrace, we advocate to our business leaders, and also have the framework around retention, like how long you keep the data for, right? And when do you need to delete the data? So I think that all comes in, as a whole sort of package right now. ChatGPT, that's an interesting bit because I've been working on that quite recently over the last 2 weeks. Because we are looking to let all our employees to use it, right? And then we are also developing our own version of ChatGPT based on the Azure OpenAI, right? But I think the key is, I think the human factor doesn't go away because you do need to ask sensible questions. You need to ask the question in a responsible manner. So we have set out a list of do's and don'ts, right? Obviously those are guidelines to make sure our colleagues, our employees are following the guidelines. They don't use any abusive language or they don't ask discriminating questions. And at the same time, the key bit is really whatever result they get from the ChatGPT, they have to validate the result. They cannot just use it. For example, I think more and more of them are using it to do presentation to customers, clients, sales pitches and material. And so all this stuff, right? At the same time, when we want to use those information or use ChatGPT, you also need to provide your own proprietary information. For example, your sales forecast, your sales, segmentation, your number, our way of return on equity or return on revenue. So all these numbers you also need to provide. So obviously from my perspective is when you put in all these proprietary information into ChatGPT, would that get sort of used by other users? So I think that's also part of the reason why we're building our own ChatGPT. We want to protect our own proprietary information, right? So to answer your question, I think to make good decision on data, it's very important to actually go from top management. So the message is always come from the top, how you want to do data, how you want to grow your business, and how you want to use the data in a very responsible manner and without breaching any privacy regulation. At the same time, you want to explore technology, but again, you cannot take away the human factor because human needs to also grow with AI, right? And I think that's the progression I'm looking for. Yeah.
Thanks, Benedict and the panelists. So I'd like to open the floor to see whether you have a question. And if you raise the question, please say your name, your organization, and then you can just pinpoint any panelist here, or you can raise a general question as well. Oh yeah, the gentleman over there.
I don't have mic. I think you can hear me, right? Okay. I'm Carman. I'm the Group Finance Admin Director of Amazon Papyrus. So, no association with Amazon.com, right? Okay, my question is, how is your organization using AI, the innovative AI, in your company to provide sales services or internal services? You give some real life example that is now being applied.
Okay, anyone that you want to pinpoint to answer your questions?
Well, how we use AI basically is in our building management system. I think we have optimization program and machine learning behind our PMS, so that we can optimize the air quality, the temperature, etc. Obviously, we do have a large portfolio, so not every building have that AI optimization yet. But I think in all building, I think the technology is cheap enough, and it will pay for itself when they apply it to the new building. Retrofit is something that we are working on as well. So, example, I would say that from the retrofit is recently we are in collaboration with CLPE to replace all our water cooled chiller in our headquarters in the tower. And when the chiller has been replaced and the new intelligent management system is enforced by 2027, we estimate that we could save about 50% of our electricity bill. At the same time, we are saving 7,000 tons of carbon emissions annually. So it's a win-win. I think financially, we save on cost, and the CapEx will be able to pay back, through our saving, and also we use the saving to, invest into a wind farm in China. So, every kind of a circular economy is working.
Okay. Any panel would like
Maybe I can supplement some example for small company. So because we invest in technology startup, I found that a lot of our portfolio companies start to apply AI in their workflow. For example, like some of our portfolio company are having their development team to use generative AI to do part of the coding, and their efficiency, according to them, is like increased 50% around. And we also see some application on the marketing side, including if you need to do social media marketing. I see one of our portfolio company, they generate around more than 100 articles per day using AI instead of using human. So basically, they can they used to use a 10 people outsourcing team. Now they only need one editor to edit all these articles generated by AI. And also in terms of design, as you know that AI can also generate different graphic, like banner ad can be done by AI as well. So these are some of the observations that we see in our portfolio.
Yeah, I want to also add, ChatGPT is a large language model, right, that uses all of the internet, the universal internet. But if you are a hotel and you're customer service, and the customer is very unlikely to ask you how old is the universe, for example, right? I mean, the number of questions that the customer will ask you is very limited. So you can actually train a very small model very efficiently to get to, let's say, a customer service environment. And a lot of that is happening already. A lot of this is happening already. And it becomes, I guess, so real in a way. You could be on the phone for like a minute without actually knowing it's actually a computer talking to you. It's getting kind of scary. But we see a lot of this already. I mean, a lot of the, especially in the banking sector, for example, and there are many examples. I can cite many examples.
Yeah, I would even go as far as I'd like to always challenge our thinking a little bit. I would almost go as far as like, can you really think of anything in your value chain that cannot benefit from AI? So if I take our core business like Amazon.com, the marketplaces, it is just from beginning to end, whether it's the recommendations that you have on business for many years, fraud detections, kind of the reviews. We run a very large advertising business as well that is very much AI-driven. Fulfillment, route optimization, returns, like it just goes from beginning to end. And it doesn't always have to be ChatGPT, right? That's sort of the recent sort of darling, right? Because it's so cool, right? But any kind of these predictive optimization, machine learning things, I would say for us, it is really the complete value chain. You would have to actually go and look where something would not benefit from AI. I think that's the right mindset to have these days.